I want to get to a piece of legislation that you sponsored that would make it more difficult for President Trump to fire Bob Mueller. But before that, your reaction to the DNC lawsuit against the Russian government for conspiracy, as well as against WikiLeaks and members of the Trump campaign.
I don't know what to make of that. I just read that a little bit ago. I think I'll have to let that settle in a little bit. I'm hesitant to think that somehow that lawsuit is going to go anywhere. I think potentially it might be an effort just to get discovery more than anything else.
So that issue of discovery, I think, is another issue that many members, even within the Republican caucus congressmen, are grappling with here in Washington. And that's the basic question of will he or won't he? Will President Trump fire Bob Mueller or try to? Yesterday, our Jennifer Jacobs reporting a big scoop that as of now, he's sort of backed off of that because he's not a target of the investigation. But Speaker Ryan, another member who's announcing he's retiring, has said he wouldn't necessarily give the legislation you sponsor floor time. Why do you sponsor that, and do you still think it might be needed?
The reason, okay, so the Department of Justice actually has regulations right now that require good cause in order to terminate a special counsel. What I seek to do is codify that for several reasons, not the least of which is there should be some independence here. The president has, I've heard competing reports over the past couple months about what he may or may not wish to do. I think Mueller should be left alone to do his job. Mm-hmm. And I also think that if he were to be fired, it wouldn't be good for the president. It wouldn't be good for Republicans in the midterms. It wouldn't be good for Democrats. It wouldn't be good for the rule of law. I think it's a much needed piece of legislation separate and apart from the instant special counsel that Mueller is presently appointed to.
Congressman, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least 6 lawmakers are backing that bill, and most of them are retiring and not seeking re-election, including your colleague, Charlie Dent. So is it possible to oppose the president and still win an election as a Republican?
I think so. I think that oppose the president. I mean, I support a good number of policies, the tax bill. There's been a tremendous amount of regulatory reform measures that I think have been very positive for economic growth. But in competitive districts, it's interesting. You had a commentator on it just a little bit ago speaking about southwestern Pennsylvania. In southeastern Pennsylvania, I would argue that it is more economically conservative or fiscally conservative, but more socially moderate, maybe even lean slightly left. And so you, as a member of Congress, you need to demonstrate your independence. Folks need to know why you think what you think. You need to explain it, and you need to sort of shed your party label a little bit, particularly in competitive districts. Pro-Trump voters are going to support Republicans, but there's a lot of independent or soft Republicans and soft Democrats that are going to take each candidate personally. Where they think, what they think, and you need to be able to get out in front and message that. They do not want a rubber stamp. They also don't want someone that's just going to get on Twitter every day and attack the president either. So I do think,
And you know what? They're not riding the Acela. They're going up the blue route. And when you go up the blue route and you talk to folks in the collar counties, congressmen, as you know, in our neck of the woods, I got to be candid here. When are lawmakers going to codify these tax cuts? Because they don't care if it's because they don't want a centrist Democrat like Senator Heitkamp getting a tax cut vote. They want these permanent. So are you frustrated that this still hasn't gotten floor time ahead of the midterms?
Well, we just introduced this bill less than a week ago. So I'm glad you followed up there, because there may be some other members that sign on to this legislation. This will probably come out of the Senate. So this may get, Senator Grassley has indicated it will get a committee vote. If there's momentum in the Senate and the Senate were to pass it, then I think the House looks at it a little bit closer. But this was just introduced. I do think this is a good government transparency measure that's good for the country, and we'll see where it leads in the coming months.